Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave, episode 99? Episode 99. Wow. Episode 99. Those are two numbers that are the same. 99, that means next episode is episode 100. It's amazing. Amazing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here for 99 episodes, if that's you. Thank you for being here for your first episode, if that's you. Thank you. Thank you for checking out the How to Podcast series. My name is Dave. 99 times I've been here to talk about podcasting, plus a few daily Daves thrown in there and a few little extras here and there. But thank you for being here for the journey so far. And we've had some really great success stories already with listeners of the show, starting a show, and it's great to have those conversations together on Zoom. And then having you here as co-hosts, that means so much, again, to all my co-hosts who have given of their time and added so much great content to the podcast over the last 99 episodes. Thank you for making time for us out of your busy day and sharing your love for podcasting and your love for your podcast. And I would love to encourage you, if you haven't gone back in time to past episodes, to go check them out. There's a lot of great people who have come on this show, and the show is better because of them coming on. So I would love for you to go back and listen to some of those episodes that you might have missed in the constant flood of new content coming out from the How to Podcast series. We're doing basically Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes, and right now 3 a week. There might be a combination of daily Daves and regular episodes like this, and co-hosted ones as well. So we're kind of giving you some variety, so they're not every episode's exactly the same. And 3 times a week is a lot, and I'm playing with it because it seems to be a popular approach to a release schedule, where some of my other 6 podcasts, in addition to this one, maybe every week, every second week, once a month. I'm just playing and I'm learning so that I can help you with your podcast as it grows. This podcast, I'm so pleased. The numbers are coming in. It's great interaction from around the world, and that's exciting for me, and I really want to thank you for, again, making time to be here. Let's jump in. Here in Canada, where I live, there was an announcement just came out recently that Bell Canada, which is our big telecommunications company up here in Canada, Bell Canada cut 1,300 employees recently, according to the Canadian press. And that's a huge job loss here in Canada. For some pretty amazing people who unfortunately lost their jobs. And the job cuts hit television stations. It also hit radio stations, not just in reduced staff, but some radio stations closing up completely. And that's unfortunate. I know some people in the radio industry, some friends of mine who have now left, not in this situation, but in the past have left and moved on to other things. But 1,300 people losing their jobs from radio. So if you're listening to gurus that tell you that radio is the best place to have your podcast, just a cautionary tale here. There's things happening when they start removing AM radio from new cars, and people start losing their employment. And it's interesting. So just keep that in mind, okay? And so what I was thinking about for episode 99 here of the How to Podcast series was to talk about and talk to radio hosts that might be listening to this podcast, or if you know a radio host, to share this with them. But I had some thoughts just around why it's a good idea, even if you're still on the radio, that you should be looking at having a podcast in your back pocket and what the benefit is to you as a radio host. We're going to talk about that here on the How to Podcast series. So there's a few things that I'm jealous of, in the sense that radio people go to school for this. They actually have an education in radio. They've put in the hard work. They've learned their craft. They are bound by a time clock. They have crazy schedules that they have to get up really early in the morning or work overnights. They don't make a lot of money. They do it for the love of the music or the love of community or the love of being on the radio. There's a lot of things they have to deal with, though, that podcasters don't. We don't have a time clock. Our podcast can be 5 minutes, 22 minutes, an hour, and 13 minutes. Our podcast can be whatever we want it to be. Broadcasters and radio people have to deal with commercials and sports and weather and all of that. They get reviewed. They get checked. Like, they actually have to go into a room and they play back all the mistakes that they've made. Imagine, as a podcaster, having somebody randomly pick a portion of your podcast, pull you into a room, shut the door, and say, okay, here's all the things you did wrong. That's a lot of pressure. They have to compete with the radio station down the road, because in the morning, in the drive time, on your way to work, we got to get you to work on time, and I'm competing with every other radio station in the area for your ears and for your attention. And if I'm not good, if I'm not on, if I'm not funny and engaging and all of those things, you're just going to jump to the next station. There's there's songs to be picked and commercials that work, and there's so much going on. Talk about plate spinning. That's a lot. And as podcasters, we don't have to deal with any of that. And for the most part, most podcasters don't even go to school to learn how to do this. We're doing this like I'm doing right now from the basement of my house with a microphone that I purchased and some software. I'm talking to the world. I'm not just talking to my community. And I'm not competing with anyone, because this can be listened to anytime. You can listen to your favorite podcast, and when you're done, come over here and listen to mine. I'm not on at the same time as everyone else. It just sits in your phone and waits for you to come and listen to the next episode. So there's a lot of differences between radio and podcasting. And one of the things that one of my friends was let go of their position, and all of their work, all of their radio time, all of their on-air time, their show, their personality was locked in a cabinet, and they had nothing to show for it when they walked through the door and left the building with their box in their hand from all the contents of their desk. They had nothing. They had no tapes. They had no recordings of their work on the radio, and that's unfortunate. So what I would like to suggest to radio people out there is to leverage your community and the people who love you and start a podcast. You are an expert on the microphone. You can do things that many, many podcasters can't. And it is just who you are. I know there was a woman in our community, very popular on the radio here in Southern Ontario, Niagara, Toronto area. And she has a loyal following. And I would listen to her anytime she was on the radio because she was hilarious. She was sarcastic and funny and smart. And she seemed to have the best music on her show. When she was on, you knew you had to be there as a listener. You would sit in the driveway just to hear the last part of her story before you carry on with your day. You really felt connected with her as a radio host. And she was let go. And again, I don't know any of the details, but she was hurt in the process. and her community came around her, and I reached out to her as a fan of her show and said, listen, you need to start a podcast. I would love to help you, or I would love to support you. I would listen. And she's like, I don't know. I feel kind of burned out. But that's what I'm thinking as a radio personality. You just have so much to offer to listeners. So start building your podcast if you're allowed to do something on the side, but start building it now while you're on the radio, and have that in your back pocket that you can now reach out to your audience and have a recording. I have this right now. This is my recording. You can have your own recording, take all the skills and talents you have, and bring it to podcasting. You could help so many podcasters who are starting out, who don't have the level of expertise that you have. And the other thing is you can do this without the restrictions that you face every day being on the radio. And one of the things I want to say to the podcasters listening is, if the radio people find out this, I don't think they're going to be too pleased with you. On radio, they don't have a chance to go back and edit. It's basically live for the most part when they're on the microphone. That little light comes on, and they got to be on. And as podcasters, I see podcasters who hit record on an episode and just put it out there into the world with no editing, no corrections, no ums and ahs and big silent breaks that are still there. No editing. They just put it out in the world and, I'm perfect the way I am as a host. I don't need to edit. And I don't think a radio person would agree with you. You're talking for an hour and you haven't made one single error. I don't know if that's possible. And I would encourage you, from a radio perspective, to edit your show. Make it clean as far as getting rid of some of the mistakes. Perfection is not required, but when you have an obvious mistake, like while I was recording this, my German Shepherd shook his head as he got up to walk out of the room, and you could hear the sound of his ears flapping around. And like, do I leave that in here for your enjoyment? No, I stopped the recording, went back, and started over again after he left and went and lay down. So we do owe our audience a little bit of editing. And I think that's something you're going to learn as you listen to a radio person, is they're going to actually tell you, this is how we do it in the professional world. So there's a lot to learn from them there. I guess the other side, I think, to speaking to radio personalities that are considering a podcast, is the level of connection you can have with your audience. The stats, the real stats that we get to see as a podcaster that radio people don't get to see. You get a book, or you get emails and general idea of who might be in your listening area. But if you get on the radio and say, we serve 3 million people, I can pretty well guarantee to you that 3 million people are not listening to every second of your radio show. Pretty well guarantee that. Whereas in podcasting, we can actually see with some degree of accuracy where people are listening to our show from globally. We can see what they're listening on. We get a general idea of their age bracket. We get some basic information on every episode. We can hear and see where our listeners drop off from our show. Maybe the content's too long or too boring, and people leave so that we can fix and make our episodes better. We have some pretty rich data that I think if we take the data and the analytics that we get in podcasting and take the expertise of a radio personality and the training and the talent and the life experience of being behind a microphone, you put those together, that's unbeatable, I think. So my challenge to anyone who is fearing an email or a news report saying the next round of layoffs or radio stations closing and TV stations closing and people losing their income and their way of life because of whatever reason. My encouragement to you as a radio personality, if this is you and you have been pushed out of your career and the love of your life to now be unemployed, think of podcasting. Think of how podcasting can help you to continue to use the amazing talents, gifts, and abilities that you have. And build that audience now. If you're still employed, you're still on the radio, doing your thing, think about what could you do when you get home to continue to leverage the great, amazing talents that you have. Think about it. Because I think that any radio person that's out there listening to my voice, an untrained voice, working from his home with music background, but learning podcasting in front of you in real time as you're hearing this, you can do your own editing. You can do your own social media. You can do your own promotions. You can find your own sponsors. I am sure that with your level of talent and ability, you could start really high as far as the level of where you're beginning from with your episode 1 in comparison to someone who has never done this before, has never gone to school, has never been on a microphone. You're going to start at a completely different level. So my challenge and my encouragement to you, fellow broadcaster, is to start now and start building your community now. And if you need help with starting, or if I can be of any assistance to you, especially to these 1,300 people here in Canada that have been displaced by whatever the reason is, if I can help you in any way, I would love to do that. And I'd love for you to build your community and continue to build your community, whether it's at the station or it's in your home, sitting in front of your computer recording like this. I would love to be there to help you in the next chapter of your career or as a side hustle. I would love to be there to help you with that. howtopodcast.ca. And in this podcast, if you subscribe and follow along here, every time I release a new episode, it'll just show up in your folder of new episodes to listen to. And you won't miss any episodes, but I would encourage you to go back. You have 99 episodes to check out. And I'd love to have you go back and take a listen to some of the past episodes that you find interesting, that you think could help you. And if you want to sit and chat, I would love to do that as well. howtopodcast.ca. It's a Canadian website. howtopodcast.ca, not .com. That's somebody else. howtopodcast.ca. I'm looking forward to meeting you there. And let's carry on the conversation. Episode 100 is coming out right after this. And I'm looking forward to celebrating with you. So here's to 100 episodes. And thank you for being here for each and every episode that you've listened to. I really do appreciate you making time to be part of the podcast. Get out there and podcast. 100 episodes goes by pretty quick. I got to tell you, when you have your best friends listening, some amazing co-hosts, and new friends dropping by all the time. Thank you for being here. See you on episode 100.